Hey, Pepin.
Yo, Steve.
I've been wanting to, you look really good lately.
Really?
Yeah, you've been working out.
Yeah, I've been working out. Also, there's a blind guy yesterday. He said I looked really good too.
That does not surprise me. Your physique kind of reminds me of like a Greek god, like a Hercules or something.
You can't see it right now, but I'm blushing.
He is, and it's kind of cute. I think we need to talk.
Yeah.
Welcome back. So glad you guys could join us yet again. My name is Meader, as you well know. I'm one of your hosts. I'm here today with the other host of this show, Pepin. How's it going, Pepin?
Doing pretty good. It's rather hot outside, but yeah, it's still good.
It is very warm out today. Absolutely. I would concur with that. And as always, we have a special guest today. Brand new special guest we've never had on before. B, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're definitely lucky to have you here today. Excited to have some in-depth conversations here, and I think Greek mythology is a great conversation to have.
Absolutely. It's something that anyone can get into. It doesn't matter if you're intermediate or advanced, and you can just kind of put your opinion out there with it.
Absolutely. Now, I want to know, I'm honestly, there's one book that just about everybody I know who knows Greek mythology has read at some point, and it's that smaller paperback book that has like a golden cover with Hercules or something on the front. And I know a few people I had talked to about Greek mythology had been like, oh yeah, I've read that same exact book. So that's more or less everything I know is based off of just that one book that I read 6 years ago. So I want to know, how well versed are you guys when it comes to Greek mythology, Nate?
So first of all, I actually think I saw you reading that book in high school. Is that right?
Yes.
So I have not read that book, but what I have done is I've done some research of my own, and this is just into random myths, and I started reading a book myself, but I didn't finish it. And I listened to a few podcasts, and my knowledge is very scattered. I can tell you very detailed things about certain little weird things, but I can't tell you like general overarching storylines or anything like that.
What about you, Brian?
Wow. I have to be honest. I don't know what book you're talking about. I'm not gonna lie there.
Oh, man, I'm a liar. That's all.
But I think it started in sixth grade for us. It was mandatory. We did a whole block on Greek mythology. And from there, I was just super excited because we had to get assigned our gods and do our project on them. And it just followed throughout the years. And I even did a little bit in when I went to community college for extracurricular courses. It's very fantastic.
So it sounds like of us here, you're pretty well versed in comparison to Pepin and I having just like at some point read most of a book.
Fair, yes. Decent amount knowledge, yes.
That's fantastic. We're definitely lucky to have you here then to help balance out this conversation and kind of fill in the gaps where Nate and I sound like utter idiots.
Now, so you chose to study it a bit more after high school or after school? Was it sixth grade?
Yes, actually, I did decide to because it just kind of drew me in, and I like the parallels between their kind of religion and the Western religion, and how they kind of had similarities, and yet they were so different at the same time, kind of outlandish.
That does make me think about one myth in particular. I can't remember what it is, so hopefully you can. Hopefully you can. It's one in which somebody, like a god or someone, sacrifices his son, and then some kind of other god stops him, or maybe it's a follower or something.
Oh my goodness. There's so many son sacrifices. It's ridiculous.
They think this myth may have inspired the Hebrew myth of Isaac being sacrificed by his son Abraham, or his father Abraham. And, in the original myth, Abraham sacrifices his son and he dies, then gets resurrected as the son, and then Abraham's the moon and stuff like that. And it's kind of a cycle, but so he actually goes through it and kills him essentially. And then in the original Greek myth with that, the same thing happens. The father actually sacrifices his son, and he just dies.
And in the story, as far as biblically with Isaac, that people know now, it's God stops him at the last second and says, "Okay, I was just testing you." Is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah. And so some people think that the Hebrews may have actually gotten that myth from the Greeks. And what's interesting is both of them really changed it to, the sacrificing not occurring, because they kind of decided the sacrifice isn't really good. We don't really want to promote this here.
I do know Prometheus was a Titan, a child of Cronus, who was another Titan, who was father to Zeus, a god. And Prometheus had the power of foresight and Zeus was pestering Prometheus to tell him some information on what was going to happen, and Prometheus never did. But Prometheus brought fire to Earth, stealing from Hephaestus, the god of blacksmithing, or another myth says he stole it from, I believe, Ares, the god of war, or Helios, the god of sun. Either way, he brought the fire to man, and Zeus was pissed off and said, "Chain him up." And they chained him up, and he sent an eagle every day to pluck out his liver, and was later saved by I can't recall who it was, but he was later saved by another god and a mortal.
Right.
Now, you just mentioned a whole bunch of names all at once, but in that you mentioned that some of them were gods, some of them were mortals, and some of them were titans. Can you give me definitions on what makes each one what they are and what makes them different?
There. Okay, so titans came first, or it's theorized they come first from the Big Bang. The Big Bang theory happened, Titans came along. You have Gaia, who is Mother Earth, and then...
Hold on, when you say Big Bang, what do you mean by Big Bang? It's not like the cosmic Big Bang.
The scientific theory Big Bang of how the universe, what is it?
Are you saying at universe creation?
Correct.
Because now the theory is that there was the Big Bang, but back then the theory was cosmic creation just in general. So is that a more accurate use? Okay.
Thank you.
No,
yes.
Absolutely.
And so that happened, and then the Titans came along, and one Titan in particular is Gaia, Mother Earth, and then there was Uranus, Father Sky, and they came together and had a bunch of other little Titan babies, like Cronus, the most popular, and Rhea, his sister, whom he had all the gods with. He mated with Rhea and feared these gods would overtake and become so controlling that he ate his children.
So, hold on a second. He had sex with his sister?
So incest is how gods are made.
Yes.
Gods and kings, right?
Absolutely.
Oh my God, this is coming full circle right now.
We've talked in the past about incest being bad, but the more this show goes on, we got kings, we got gods, I'm starting to change my views.
There's so much incest in, it's actually a rite of passage back then for mortal fathers to deflower their sons at the age of 16 when they're known to be men, and they had big orgies. So there's a lot of incest.
Right.
Man, they put the sweet in sweet 16, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, to expand upon that a little bit, I think that was a kind of a Greek culture thing.
Yes.
So if you look at the Symposium, for instance, by Plato,
yes,
there's a whole Greek orgy going on there, and it had 8-year-old, 10-year-old boys and girls. There was kind of sex slaves, which is kind of pretty horrific, but it was their culture back then.
Yeah, it was a part of the norm. Nobody, they're having sex in their family. What? It was a thing.
Not to say that it's all right, by any stretch of the imagination, but more to say that back then it was all right to them.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, I think homosexuality wasn't really a big deal in Greece. Like, Socrates himself had this guy who was all after him and stuff. And he was like apparently the most attractive person of all Athens. And, Socrates was like, I got a wife. I can't really do this.
I am so glad you said that you said Greece, because it's true. There's the Greece mythology and the Roman mythology, and they're so hand in hand. But like you said, in Greece, it just was a thing. There was no homophobia, anything. It was just a way of life way back then. It was just accepted.
So is it more like fluidity in that sense, that they would find people sexually attractive or romantically attractive versus a gender of a man or woman?
As I heard it, it was, again, part of the myth thing is that Grecians were of thought and of mind, and they saw themselves of higher intelligence, and therefore they would expand on that. So there was no inhibitions or worriment of, there was you're a male, you're a female, and that's how it should go. We're higher beings. We like to have fun, and this is how we let loose, and this is just who we are.
I do think there was a lot of instances of pretty, not exclusively homosexual, but the Spartans, for instance, were very homosexual, but they had wives, and they didn't see their wives very often. But one thing they did really like or want their wives for was for reproduction. So for certain people, their family line was very, very important. So oftentimes their wives would just be for, having kids.
Yep. And Spartans were warriors, so a lot of them brought up warrior children. So it was it was very good to mate with other people, be it mostly females for the children, but men helped each other out too a lot.
Now, does that come across in their mythical, in their myth culture as well, that women are used more in the background and not given as much power, and are more to give birth to these gods that end up doing things? Or do you see kind of a different type of thing going on with the gods?
That's so funny you say that, because actually in the myths, the goddess is the only goddess who doesn't have like any power per se, Aphrodite's.
Really?
The goddess of love. She was born from Cronus's penis. Zeus chopped it off, threw it to the sea. Out comes Aphrodite's. And because she was so beautiful, so coveted, that Zeus was worried that was going to be taken away from him, being the king of the gods. And so he married her to the ugliest god. His son, Hephaestus, unionized it. And her power drained there, being married with the ugliest god.
Really? Because I thought she had a lot of power as well. I thought she was very influential within the, like, not like, magical powers, or like, but I thought she had a lot of influence in, kind of the myths.
She does have a lot of influences. And there's a lot of negative repercussions with her, especially with like Athena, the virgin goddesses, they call them. They're Demeter, Athena, Artemis. They're the ones who, men are awful, men are this, blah, blah, blah. Kind of very, very feminist type. So if you were in Aphrodite's favor, you tend to get looked poorly upon the other goddesses and have other repercussions come your way. So you had to be careful who you chose as your deity to really put out there.
Not to bring us off topic completely, you said that hating men was a feminist view. I would disagree with that. I think feminists want equality, not to be better than. Though some radicals will take it to a level beyond equality. I don't think that that's the general consensus of what feminism as a word means and as a movement means.
I agree. I like that correction. That is true. That's more or less where I was trying to go with that.
So it seemed like, Nate, you were talking about the influence that Aphrodite had, and Brienne was talking about the power that she didn't have. So it sounds like there's kind of a duality here in power and in influence? And how much do we think influence is power, and how much do we think power gives you influence? Because it sounds like by power, Brienne, you were more saying she doesn't have supernatural powers. And when Nate was saying power, he meant more influence, more the ability to cause action or change. I thought that was a very interesting contrast between the two of you using the same word, but having completely separate meanings.
Yeah, I definitely think they're very connected. Like, someone who is very, very attractive, like, in everyday life, they have a lot of power, or a lot of, not power, they have a lot of influence over other people. Like, I've seen very, very attractive girls who guys will do almost anything for them. They can be awful people, and then sometimes they are awful people. And it's like, oh God, well, why is this guy doing this for her? She's just kind of using you right now. And so I think you can have power just from, say, attraction, and you can also gain influence from that. You know, I think people who are less attractive, like, I think the more attractive of a politician you are, or a kind of war leader, you know, the more influence you have over someone.
I agree. Because Aphrodite did have a lot of influence because of that. That was kind of her power. A lot of the gods did a lot of like transformations and things like that. She's no exception. But she just was kind of stifled and buried down because of who her marriage ties were with. And plus there was that kind of catty girl jealousy between, I don't even know if it would be jealousy, but there was that stigma kind of with her between the other goddesses. So if you favored Aphrodite and you showed it and it offended in some way another goddess, that was it. That goddess was going to find a way to punish you.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that maybe part of the message there with Aphrodite's not being able to reach that kind of higher power, that great influence, might be the fact that she's married to a kind of lesser person?
Yep.
So maybe the message there is somebody, you know.
That was the idea, the way that the myth goes, because that myth was so kind of loose, really. It didn't give a whole lot. So, and that's the feel that I got from it. And when we talked about it in class, that was the general idea that we all discussed and got from it.
Now, Aphrodite, you said, was the most beautiful woman. So what's the difference between Aphrodite and Persephone? Is that a Roman Greek thing, or is that they were two completely different myths?
They're completely different myths. Persephone is Zeus's daughter, with his sister Demeter, and Demeter is the goddess of earth and hearth, goddess of earth and crops. So Persephone is a nymph, which is a goddess-like. Yeah, she's goddess. She's just kind of lower level, lower tier goddess. And Aphrodite is one of the big 12. She's up higher. So, because she's one of, like, the originals, per se. So, Persephone was more earth connected, and that's what nymphs were. They were more on earth, kind of mingling around with the mortals more.
So, was she closer to a demigod?
No, she definitely had... Yes, she would be more towards a demigod.
Now, a demigod would be a god and a human creating a child that's half god, half human, like Hercules or something.
Correct.
Versus a nymph, which, how do you become a nymph versus a god? A god and god wouldn't create a god?
Well, it's a lower tier god. She's just lower leveled. She was...
Is that because they were brother and sister?
You know, well, I'm not sure on that, actually. I don't think we ever really discussed on that.
Because that'd be pretty interesting if two Titan brother and sister have a baby and it becomes a god, which is lower than a Titan, and then two gods have a baby and it becomes a nymph, which is lower than a Titan. I mean, lower than a god. So, like, every time you have this incest going on, it's creating lesser beings.
But that doesn't make sense, because the Titan Cronus and the Titan Rhea were brother and sister, and they created the gods.
Right, not gods lesser than Titans?
No, they're equal to.
Then why have a different name?
Because they had different personality, different traits. The Titans wanted to see, they were your powerful, like fighting type man's men kind of people or beings. And then you had the gods who wanted to see prosper, and they wanted there to actually be civilization and no chaos kind of a situation going on. They wanted followers and believers, but they were kind of saddled with a lot of narcissism and selfishness.
I kind of wonder how this came to be, how this evolved, because what I can imagine right now is maybe there's two sets of gods, like the kind of gods of war and then the gods of, like, say, the Republic. And maybe some people worship the gods of war, other people worship the gods of the Republic. And eventually, they started kind of differing, and, it kind of became two religions, but not kind of like one at the same time, if that makes any sense. And then, they kind of combined them into, or they made a mythology about them where, you have the Titans who are like this, and, they're not really liked by the Republic, so they're kind of like demons in a way, or kind of not, they're kind of lesser. And then the gods, which we like because, we're a Republic, and this is how our leaders are. They kind of reflect our people. I know ancient Rome was very warlike, so I could see them sympathizing maybe with the Titans a bit more. As it became more of a Republic, I could see them relating more to the gods, and maybe, the gods becoming more and more in favor with them. If that makes any sense.
No, it really does. And I didn't really follow a lot of the Roman mythology, but if you look at some of like Pandora's box, and that can go for Greek mythology and Roman mythology. And the Roman mythology did have a darker side to it because it wasn't a box according to the Greek mythology. It was a clay jar that had that was her dowry to marrying this other god, and she opened it even though she was told not to, and that was to create chaos and hurt against humans. For
who the fuck gives chaos and hurt in a box as a gift?
Here you go. Here's this gift.
Like, here's a gift.
Destruction.
Don't open it or you'll destroy everything in existence.
Also, to be clear, who is doing this exactly? Who's giving the gift?
Oh, I'm trying to remember which god it was. I unfortunately.
It was probably my stepmom.
That's deep.
Shit just got real right now.
That's real deep.
Hey, Dad.
Shout out. Shout out to the family.
That's your decision if you want to cut that or not.
Let's see. It was Pandora. Who was Pandora's father? I don't think it was her father that did it. I almost want to say it was Zeus, because Zeus does a lot of exacting revenge on certain gods and goddesses for certain things. He really does levelize everything, and that's why he's the god of the king, or
Zeus
king of the gods.
does a lot of fucked up things too. Didn't at one point he come down and rape a woman as a duck?
A swan? Absolutely. He came down and he definitely did.
He came down as a swan and raped a woman.
He's also come down as a eagle. He's transformed into a bull. Yeah.
So do you think a story like that happens where, like, a woman is just walking along and all of a sudden she gets raped by a swan, and then she's like, "It was Zeus, I swear." That's what he said his name was. I don't know.
Who came up with that? Why would...
The same people who came up with the Virgin Mary. It's just an excuse for something completely fucked up that happened.
And that's funny you say that, because that's what a lot of people attributed it to. It was, oh, this woman had sex with someone else that she shouldn't have. And she's just like, hey, look at this child that I magically had because I was raped. Raped by who? This?
A god?
Thing?
But how could a god have sex? Well, he was a duck, like...
Swan?
Obviously.
I'm just thinking about, like, the shape of a swan's penis, and if it's anything like a duck, oh god, that girl was in for a bad time.
I would have to say the same thing about the bull. There was a giant...
what?
Yeah, there's a myth where he came down as a bull, had sex, and actually that's how... Yeah, the Minotaur. That's where the Minotaur comes from, by the way, who also married his sister, so...
So not only did a god become a bull to rape a woman and create horsemen, but it was also incest?
Yep. There's a lot of crazy myths out there.
You know, here on We Need to Talk, we get on some crazy fucking shit. But the Greeks had us beat.
They even have a god for shit.
Of course they do.
Really? What is it?
The Great Mighty Pooh?
No, it starts with an S, and I'm trying to remember his name. But yeah, he was for fertilization, and his job was to help Demeter with the crops and making sure that everything grows. So also, if you were having ailments where you could not go or you were going too much, you prayed to this god that he helped you release your bowels or hold them.
That's actually, it's like just thinking about that at first you're gonna laugh at it. It's like, oh, that's funny. But then you think about it a bit more, and it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I could actually see them worshiping this kind of god because it makes sense for their time period.
I mean, people say it all the time. Go worship the toilet god when you're like constipated and you're wishing Jesus just let me have this. Go.
I don't think I've heard that.
Oh, well, you haven't been in my household.
Or praying to the porcelain god when you're throwing up.
There
A lot of
you-
people call
okay.
it that. Because you're like kneeling at that point. But along those same lines with like ailments and wanting to and it having to do with manure at the same time, I know that there's a story of a philosopher, a big name philosopher. I don't remember it. And he was he like helped shape philosophy, and he got sick at some point, and the doctor came and was like, oh, here's how you fix it. And he's like, nope, I know how to fix it. And he buried himself up to his neck in manure in the hot sun to help, in the hopes that it would extract all of the water from him. And that's what happened, and he died.
So he detoxified himself with toxins and
By burying
dehydrated
himself in shit.
himself.
Yes, and he died. Wow. Because he's an idiot.
Which period was this?
I don't know. I heard this on a podcast called Philosophize This. Amazing podcast. If you're interested in philosophy at all, I highly suggest it. Shout outs. I'll tweet at you. It's all good. But like when I heard that, I'm like, this guy is insane. Like,
Yeah, I don't think that was Greek because it seemed, I don't know, I'm pretty good with Greek philosophy and I don't recall, I feel like I would have heard about that. I mean, there's a story about the guy who got killed by the bird laying an egg on his head.
Yeah.
But that's the only kind of cool death in Greek philosophy.
It was one of those names like Diometrius or something like that. And isn't that Greek?
Sounds kind of Greek.
I just made that name up, but it was
Demetrius?
something like that.
Yeah, a lot of Latin names or Roman names kind of sound Greekish as well.
Fair.
So, but we'll have to update about this next time.
Oh, yeah, we need to apologize. But yeah, mini-sodes. You may get one every Thursdays. You may not. So look forward to that. But to get us back on track, the only reason I brought that up is because you mentioned that he was both like people would pray to him if they had ailments. At the same time, he was also like the god of fertilization. So it was just kind of an interesting tie-in that kind of thing happened in real life. And also the Greeks, like that's their thing, and that's fucked.
Very.
In my opinion. I hope I don't upset any ancient Greeks.
Oh.
Now, on the topic of kind of like kind of people worshiping different gods for different reasons, something I learned in this book I was reading about Zeus was that initially he was a rain god, and it made sense with the kind of the area that they were in, because an area that they're in, they're very reliant on rain for their crops, and so Zeus was kind of the most powerful god for that reason. It doesn't seem like today why rain would be not important, because we don't really deal with rain very much. It's more of a nuisance than anything. But back then, rain was very, very important. Now, as Greece became more and more powerful, or the states of Greece, it became less and less important, the fact about rain, because they had very good agriculture, they had very good trade networks and all this kind of stuff. So Zeus still held the position as the most powerful god, but he transformed more into like a god of thunder, as a god of thunder and lightning, which is a kind of different role than this god of rain.
That is, yeah. There's also another theory that we actually discussed, because I took that kind of stance on our class. There's another theory that When the gods expelled from Kronos, Hades is actually the firstborn son. He is the oldest. However, he was regurgitated last. Therefore, the youngest. Zeus came out first, even though Zeus was the middle child. With that being said, when Zeus was regurgitated first, he became the firstborn son. And he got to choose which kingdom he got to rule over. So he took Kingdom of the Sky, Mount Olympus. That was his home. Poseidon took sea. And Hades kind of got stuck with the underworld and the Elysian fields. So poor Hades.
So not to backtrack here, but you said when they were regurgitated. So, and going back to the beginning of the podcast as well, when you were talking about this, so Kronos, all these gods were given birth to. Hades first, and then Zeus was the middle child, and then Poseidon somewhere in there, and blah, blah, blah. And then you said that Kronos ate them all.
Yep.
So then he regurgitated them again, and that's when they actually came down and took kingdoms.
Yes,
Okay. So that was kind of the timeline there.
Yeah, they said, yeah, we're not going to be swallowed again. Let's beat Dad up and make sure that he gets sent away for good.
So despite the fact that Hades was the oldest by birth, by the time he got to the choice of what kingdom, they were all taken, and all that was left was the underworld.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then he gets Persephone later on as a wife.
Now that's a beautiful story because it ties back into the rain thing.
Hercules.
Hercules. Oh boy. So Hades does get Persephone, and which is Zeus's daughter with Demeter, the goddess of the crops, who kind of work with the rain, so on and so forth. Persephone was out picking wildflowers, and Hades was doing his round on his chariot. He looked up, and there's beautiful Persephone, and he thought, I'm lonely, I gotta have her. That's mine. So nymphs are known to run away and hide and be scared from mortals and gods alike. They just don't want to be bothered. So Hades split the earth in front of her, didn't give her a chance, took her and brought her down to hell or the underworld with him. And Demeter, the mother of Persephone, could not find her daughter anywhere. And they had such a close bond that she was so sad that she refused to let crops grow, hence fall and winter. And now Hades trying to keep Persephone down with him because she wanted to leave. She needed her mother. She was starting to kind of like Hades, but she was like, yeah, I really love my mother too. Hades said, all right, you can go. But first, let's eat this meal. And he fed her a pomegranate seed, which was the fruit of the underworld. And when you eat that, you can never leave the underworld.
So there was some Stockholm syndrome going on there as well. And then he tricked her into staying there because she didn't know that a pomegranate kept you in the underworld.
That's correct.
I'm not surprised that pomegranates are disgusting. It's no wonder that pomegranates are from hell.
You really don't like them?
No, I think they're one of the nastiest things on hell.
I'm not sure if you're joking or not. I mean, this is serious.
Well, look at my face, listeners, and you'll know whether I'm joking or not.
Okay, they're looking at it right now. Oh God, you are serious.
I don't like them.
Man, that's fucked up.
Well, I love them. You can give me yours.
They're all yours.
Thank you. They're delicious.
Welcome to stay in hell.
Maybe that's where I belong.
It's all a trick.
Let me be clear. The underworld also had the Elysian fields, which allowed you to, in the afterworld, it was like a heaven for the mortals. You got to live out the rest of your time in peace. There was no sickness. You were always happy. It was good times. Hades was good to his people.
So why would you go to hell at all? Why would bad people go to hell, or would everybody go to hell?
Everyone goes to the underworld, and that's where they Thanatos, another god of death, a son of Hades, and Persephone actually. There's Thanatos and Hypnos. Hypnos is for sleep, Thanatos is for death. So Thanatos would go collect these souls, bring them to the underworld, where they would be taken across the raft for the Sea of Styx, and they would be river. Sorry, thank you. river Styx. And then they would get judged basically on what was going on in their life and what they did for the world or whatever. And then they would get chosen, okay, well, you were good, you were great, this and that, you're going to the Elysian Fields. And if they weren't, then they were just kind of, it was like a purgatory. They're just stuck.
Underworld stories always fascinate me. I know at one point, there's a million pop culture allegories for the River Styx and the underworld and the passage and all of that. I know Odysseus, in his whole ridiculously long story, at one point he's in the underworld and he has to traverse that. He has to go there and come back out and all of that. But the kind of afterlife story that I like the most is the Egyptians, where you're, in order to get to Aru, you have to go through like all these gates that have all these like big Titan things and all these monsters. And then you finally get to the judgment and you're placed on a scale and weighed against a feather. And if you're either too heavy or too light, you're damned. And if you weigh the same as the feather, you're actually sent to Aru, which is their heaven.
That's fascinating.
But that's the Egyptians. It doesn't really draw too many parallels, other than the quintessential being judge type of deal in the afterlife. But I know, to get back to Greek mythology and Hades and all that jazz, Persephone, I know at one point Hercules goes and has to rescue Persephone. Does anybody know that story a little bit better?
Nope. That sounds like that was...
I know and I've actually never seen it, but the Disney movie, is that Persephone or is that Aphrodite?
He married Princess Megara. Megara, you're talking about Megara. Megara was actually his wife.
That almost sounds racist.
And she, he never went down for Persephone, because what ended up happening is they brought Zeus in and said, "Father, brother, can you make a judgment? Help us out here." Because Persephone was so torn between her mother and now her newfound love for Hades and getting stuck. Zeus said, "Okay, here's what we're going to do. 6 months of the year, you're up on Earth with your mother. 6 months out of the year, you're down in the underworld with Hades." So for spring and summer, she goes up for her mother, and fall and winter, she's down for Hades. And thus, that's how we get the change of the seasons.
So Hercules never has anything to do with Persephone?
No Hercules with Persephone.
I'm going to challenge that.
Okay.
With no facts.
Challenge accepted.
Just my heart.
Pepin, you.
That story is just like parental custody. It's like what happens in courts.
Parental custody when one of them's the father and when one of them is the husband and one is the mother.
But the husband's the uncle too.
That's it's creeping.
And the mother is a sister. Remember, Zeus and Demeter were...
Wait, the mother is a sister?
Demeter and Zeus were direct brother and sister.
Gotta love the family tree and incest.
Oh, God, it gets very complicated.
Absolutely, because Zeus's brother, Hades, loves his daughter, who is Hades' niece, and the mother is the sister to both these gentlemen.
I think this is why they stopped doing incest. The family...
I think that all of these stories were just made so that people wouldn't want to do incest. Because they're like, things just get too fucked up, man.
They try explaining the family tree, and then it gets these huge maps and everything.
You
and
can't.
It's like, you want that to be your family?
And it's like, just think about Hades. Just think about Hades. They're like, oh my goodness, I don't want your
Actually,
kids.
Hades' line is actually smaller than all the rest.
Oh,
His
really?
only lover he took, Persephone.
And the size of your line matters.
We're going to leave that there like that?
Does the size of your line matter? We'll find out.
Next time
On We Need to Talk.